Welcome to the end of quarter talk for the self-directed help seeking and skill development project in the Agile Research Studio SIG in Design Technology and Research. I'm Shankar Dutt Salwan presenting my quarter-long work. So over my talk, I would like to discuss the problem statement I have at hand, some of the research questions I've focused on, go over my design arguments and talk about the conceptual and technical contributions I've had so far this quarter. Go over a brief need finding study I had with the new help seeking identification breadth I've gone into. Go over some results and takeaways, and finally talk about future work and steps I want to take forward in the coming quarter with my project. So, to focus on the problem statement, we're looking at help seeking behaviors and how we can scaffold and support them in communities like Agile Research Studios. So there are three broad phases to help seeking. There's firstly identifying a help seeking need, getting resources and helpers, identifying these resources and helpers for the need, and going to these resources and helpers and getting the help you need, and then moving on with your obstacles. The focus of my project so far has been on these two broad stages of help seeking: is identifying your help seeking need and identifying resources. While over the last few months, I've focused on how to scaffold help-seeking need identification for novice users, I've also, through my research this quarter, started to understand how we can scaffold users to identify resources across the community. So as for my conceptual contributions, I began by working on how we can scaffold student reflections. And in scaffolding these student reflections is how we can prompt them to reflect on stating their specific challenges, talking about their project context, their needs, as well as identifying resources from the community's learning gaps, as well as what parts of their canvas do they feel they cannot work on well when it comes to this task. Additionally, the conceptual approach for supporting help seeking helper identification is by providing a broad range of expertise and experiences available in the community and what different community members have practiced. All of this would be presented through Excel sheets as Google spreadsheets for prototyping in the basic manner. And our technical approach was to collect a lot of this data that we have gathered about different experiences and expertise people have in the community through different pipelines, whether it be pair research, learning modules, Canvas sections completed, or Canvas sprint summaries, and structure them in a way that it's presentable per attribute of what gap and what expertise and experiences people are looking for in the community. So this development led to our prototype that we have at hand. So the prototype is a list of the first segment of the prototype is how we can scaffold users in thinking about what help seeking needs they have. And it's a set of sequential prompts that builds up on reflection users have to be more specific and state their precise help seeking needs and what challenges they face. And in addition, this would help them identify what expertise they could leverage in the community for the help seeking need that they have. Moving on from this prompt in the prototype, the next section of the prototype is a guide for how to use the data available. So we present them with data like learning modules completed, which is all learning modules that have been applied to a project from every community member's individual progress map. Their Canvas sprint summaries. So to take the sprint summary from the Canvas and show what recent work people are doing in the community based by sprint. Canvas sections filled. With the help of Polaris, we can determine which sections of the canvas have been filled and to what degree have they been self-verified, mentor-verified, etc. And finally, pair research pairings in the community. So in the past, through pair research, help requests, and help pools, who was paired in what scenario and which helper was identified or rated help request really highly and got paired to provide expertise in these positions. So the learning modules completed sheet look like this, where a list of learning modules are stated, and right next to that is stated who all have completed it. And this completion signifies that they've applied it to their project and done a MISO related to it. The additional sheet being the Canvas sprint summaries. So it shows by sprint what recent work people have done. It's directly taken from people's canvases, so it's an unfiltered view and unfiltered approach to showing the recent work people have done. And finally, the pair research request. So this is taken from the pair research Meteor app, where all past pairings have been presented as helper, helpies, and help requests. This goes to show that which possible helper helped with a certain help request. With this prototype, we had a certain set of research questions we wanted to go over and understand better about our users to help us understand how we can use this data not just as it is for users to kind of figure out who they can seek help from, but how we can start developing recommendation systems. So the first two research questions pertain to the prompts that we had is how can we scaffold users in being more specific about their help seeking needs? And how do users identify expertise related to challenges they face? So the first two research questions were studied very heavily through my research in the fall and I continue to do so. But my focus this quarter was on research questions 3 to 6. How can we scaffold users in identifying helpers in the community for the challenges they face? So how can we prompt users to find these helpers? How do users actually infer that someone could help? Is it specific information from what they've seen? Is it that they're inferring from past information? Does certain information remind them of some other skill that they noticed about someone, or does it remind them of someone else? Taking into consideration all these paradigms. How do different user classes, so whether it be expert or novices, how do they work on using this information in the community? How do they infer information from this? How do they infer helpers from this information given to them? And lastly, for the experts and needs identified with the help of the scaffold, what are expertise that users look for, infer that they require in the identified helpers? This research question is to explore the sync between our prompts as well as our scaffolds in helping users identify helpers across the community. So finally, from our need finding study with about 20 students in DTR, where we presented the whole prototype and conducted about a 40-minute study, which included 25 minutes to interact with the prototype and a 15-minute survey as well as open house discussion. We learned a lot of things about the prototype so far. So information sheets like the learning module are easy to pass because it's very simple information and listed very clearly. But information sheets like Canvas, Sprint Summary, and Pair Research can be very difficult to pass since it's very unstructured in terms of the responses people have and can be really difficult to read through one at a time, given that there could be a lot of information available. Along with this, we also saw that all users identified at least one or more helpers outside of their SIGs with the help of the data provided to them. Along with this, all the helpers we reached out to that were identified with the help of our scaffold confirmed that they could help the users who would identify them as helpers in the request that they had stated. Through this need finding study, we also noticed key differences in the way novices and experts would use our prototype. So novice users are not just being people who are in their first or second quarter in DTR, but have a difficult time in navigating around and identifying expertise. These type of users usually rely highly on learning modules because it's very easy for them to just see who's done what, and they believe that their learning module expertise is broad enough to cover their entire help-seeking need, but they're not able to be specific about what they want. Additionally, they're not able to think about keywords or articulate specific expertise that they're looking for. As a result, they usually don't search the Canvas sprint summaries and pair research pages at all. They try to manually pass through it, and as a result, don't end up seeing all the possible expertise in the community. Contrasting to expert users actually have a really interesting way to break down expertise that they require. They think about a specific challenge for the expertise. They think about how that expertise ties into their project goals that they're trying to achieve. And then they think about a broad level of expertise. And through these three levels, they use these three levels to look at helper information available in the community. Whereas novice users only thought about the broad level. As a result, they restricted themselves in terms of finding helpers in the community. Novice users are also find it difficult to infer a lot of information like expert users do because they lack experience and knowledge about people across the community. And expert users' main obstacle in using this prototype was they find it difficult to gauge a lot of specificity in experience and expertise. They feel that a lot of the information is superficial might be the wrong word, but doesn't cover the specifics that they're looking for in terms of recency, impact, what people gained out of an experience. So these are a lot of expert questions that aren't answered in this process. So from the takeaways we had in our user test, we revised our interface a bit to support novice users as well as use this as a way to understand expert user behavior better. So we saw that expert users are able to break down their help seeking needs into different keywords. And a lot of what we saw was their reflections stated these keywords very clearly to them. So as a prototype, we added two new features in our learning modules page. We showed the learning module people had identified and the help seeking requests they had hovered above all the information. So it was in parallel to it. And additionally, with our Canvas sprint summaries and pair research information, we broke down users' reflections into keywords that they would identify. These keywords were taken and done in an algorithmic manner that would remove a lot of redundant stop words and stem words in a help request, such that it just breaks a sentence into a list of words and removes all um, adjectives and stop words so that they only show some core characteristics. From our revised interface, quick user test, we had a few understandings that these keywords could be helpful, but a lot of users didn't actually see them till they were prompted about it. Um, Users feel that a lot of the keywords reflect their help-seeking needs, but aren't really impactful for them. And finally, not stated on the slide, but users think that a lot of the information sometimes they find hard to trust. Distinct from expert users is they want expert users want more information, but novice users sometimes find it difficult to infer things from this information. So from these final takeaways, we have a lot of future work that we want to work on. So we saw that these keywords would be helpful, but the degree to which we pass them and being able to replicate in a system still needs to be studied. Our interface needs to be improved in surfacing these keywords and representing important information from reflections to allow users to search. We also noticed that while going through Canvas sprint summaries and pair research, a lot of information is repeated and it can be difficult if not presented in a precise and condensed manner. And lastly, we want to take a step towards developing our skill development profile. So the whole point of understanding these keyword searches is so that we can collect specific keywords related to learning modules and Canvas sections, help requests and helpers, and start developing skill profiles across the community such that we're able to have a system through crowdsourcing that's able to recommend related concepts and keywords to search from and not just focus on what users have identified. Thank you.